They said my family's graves were an unauthorized structure violating community bylaws. They gave us 30 days to remove 70 years of headstones, or they'd do it themselves. What the HOA board didn't know was that I had one document buried in a courthouse basement that would end their case in under 60 seconds. And if you haven't subscribed to H.O.A. Breakpoints yet, now's the perfect time. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because you definitely don't want to miss the next story. Trust me, it gets even crazier from here. My great-great-grandfather bought 40 acres of Georgia farmland in 1952, long before subdivisions, before paved roads, before anyone had ever heard the words homeowners association. He set aside a quarter-acre corner of that land as a family cemetery. 6 generations are buried there. My grandmother, my uncle who died in Vietnam, a baby who only lived 3 days in 1961. When the developers came through in 2004, they built a gated community around our land, literally around it. Our cemetery sat like an island inside their perfectly manicured neighborhood, fenced off. Deeded separately, untouched. For 20 years, nobody bothered us. Then a new HOA board took over, and everything changed. It came on a Tuesday. A certified letter, thick with legal letterhead, sitting in my mailbox like a bomb waiting to go off. I remember opening it in my driveway, still in my work clothes. The HOA was claiming that our cemetery violated their unified aesthetic guidelines. They called it an unauthorized structure. They said the headstones, some over a century old, needed to be relocated to an approved off-site facility within 30 days, at our expense, or the association would take appropriate action to bring the property into compliance. I read that sentence 4 times. Appropriate action. On my family's graves. I called my mother. She started crying before I even finished the second sentence. Here's the thing the HOA board didn't know, and I'm going to come back to this, so remember it. My grandfather wasn't just a farmer. He was meticulous, obsessive even, about paperwork. And somewhere in a filing cabinet nobody had opened in decades, there was something that would change everything. But first, I had to survive the meeting. I requested to address the board directly. Big mistake, walking in without proof, but I didn't know that yet. The meeting room smelled like burnt coffee and self-importance. 7 board members sat behind a folding table like they were deciding my fate. Their lawyer, a sharp-suited man named Mr. Denning, did most of the talking. He explained, almost bored, that our cemetery fell within the HOA's jurisdictional boundary per an updated property survey. He said the original 2004 development agreement gave the HOA authority over all non-residential structures, and that graves counted. I told him this was my family. Real people. Not zoning violations. He smiled that practiced, patient smile lawyers give you right before they destroy you and said, I understand this is emotional. But emotion doesn't hold up in civil court. The board voted unanimously to proceed. I had 30 days. I walked out of that meeting, shaking, humiliated, and furious. But underneath the fury, something else was sparking. Denning had made one mistake. He'd said jurisdictional boundary like it was settled fact. I decided to find out exactly how settled it really was. Now here's where it gets interesting, because what I found in that courthouse basement 3 days later wasn't just going to save my family's cemetery. It was going to expose something the entire HOA board had been hiding for years. Stick around. I spent the next 3 days in the county records office, a windowless room in the courthouse basement that smelled like old paper and dust. I pulled every deed, every plat map, every survey filed since 1952. The clerk, an older woman named Miss Patterson, saw me sifting through boxes for the second day straight and asked what I was looking for. When I explained, she got quiet, then said something I'll never forget, honey. Cemetery deeds are different. They don't work like regular property. Let me show you something. She pulled a book. I hadn't even thought to ask for the original 1952 deed transfer, the one that separated the cemetery plot from the rest of the farmland decades before the developers ever showed up. And there it was, in fading typewritten ink, a specific legal designation, not just family land, a formally recorded perpetual burial easement filed and protected under Georgia state law, completely independent of any future property development, HOA, or municipal zoning authority. My great-great-grandfather hadn't just buried his family there. He had legally locked that ground in place forever. Georgia law is explicit about this. Cemeteries with a recorded perpetual burial easement are protected from removal or disturbance, regardless of who owns the surrounding land or what associations form around it later. Developers can build 100 houses around a graveyard. They cannot touch the graveyard itself. Not without a court order, and not without proving abandonment, which with 6 generations of maintained visited graves was never going to happen. The HOA's 2004 development agreement, the one Denning kept waving around, was legally worthless against this. It couldn't override a state-protected burial easement filed 52 years earlier. Their entire case, the one that had humiliated my mother and threatened to bulldoze my grandmother's grave, was built on a document that had zero legal authority over ours. I made 12 copies. I had the deed notarized. And I scheduled another meeting. This time I didn't ask to speak. I walked in, sat down across from Denning, and slid the certified copy across the table without a word. I watched his face change in real time. That practiced lawyer smile disappeared. He read it once, then read it again, slower. Then he looked up at the board members and said 4 words that made the whole room go silent. "We need to recess." Turns out, Denning hadn't done his homework. He'd built the entire case on a modern property survey without ever checking the original 1952 filings. A rookie mistake for a man who'd humiliated me 2 weeks earlier over a motion not holding up in civil court. 2 weeks later, the HOA sent a new letter. This one was very different. It formally withdrew all claims against the cemetery, acknowledged the perpetual burial easement, and buried in paragraph 4 quietly admitted the board had not completed full title research prior to initial correspondence. Translation: they messed up, and they knew it. My mother cried again when I told her, but this time it was relief. We still visit that cemetery every Sunday. The headstones haven't moved an inch, and thanks to Georgia law, they never will. Sometimes the people trying to take what's yours just haven't done their homework. Sometimes the proof that saves everything has been sitting in a courthouse basement the whole time. If this story got you fired up, you know what to do. Subscribe to H.O.A. Breakpoints and hit that notification bell, because next week's story might be even wilder than this one.